The lonely black girl looked up at the powerful CEO with tears in her eyes and asked, "Can you give me a job?" When he saw her determination behind those tears, both their lives changed forever. Hey everyone, if this story touches your heart, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments what you think will happen next. Your support means the world to me. The December wind cut through downtown Chicago like a knife, but 7-year-old Zara Thompson didn't flinch as she stood outside the gleaming 40-story Williams Industries tower. Her small fingers gripped a cardboard box filled with candy bars, each one representing hope for another meal, another day of survival for her and her two younger brothers. Marcus Williams, at 26, was already a legend in the business world. The youngest CEO to ever take a Fortune 500 company public, he'd built his empire from nothing, transforming his father's failing construction business into a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. But as he stepped out of his black Mercedes, adjusting his $1,000 suit, he wasn't thinking about quarterly reports or board meetings. He was thinking about the little girl who'd been standing outside his building for 3 days straight. "Excuse me, sir?" Zara's voice was barely above a whisper, but there was something in her tone, a determination that made Marcus stop in his tracks. "Are you the boss man everyone talks about?" Marcus looked down into the most beautiful, intelligent eyes he'd ever seen. Despite her worn clothes and the dirt smudged on her cheek, there was something regal about this child, something that commanded respect. "I suppose I am. What's your name, sweetheart?" "Zara Thompson, sir. I'm 7 years old and I need to ask you something very important." She straightened her small shoulders, meeting his gaze with unflinching courage. "Can you give me a job? I'm a really good worker, I promise." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He glanced around at the bustling street, at the other pedestrians hurrying past without a second glance at this remarkable child. "A job, Zara, you're 7 years old. You should be in school playing with friends." "I don't have time for playing, sir." Zara's voice cracked slightly, but she maintained her composure. "My mom and daddy died in a car accident 4 months ago. Child Services wanted to split us up, put me and my brothers in different foster homes. So we ran away." Tears began to well in her eyes, but she blinked them back fiercely. "I have to take care of Tommy, he's 5, and little Ben is only 3. They're waiting for me at the shelter and they're hungry." Marcus felt his chest tighten. Something about this child's story resonated deep within him, stirring memories he'd buried long ago. "What kind of work were you thinking about?" "I can read really well, sir. Better than most grown-ups, actually. I can do math too. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, even some division. I taught myself from library books." Zara's eyes lit up with pride. "I can organize things, clean offices, answer phones. I learn fast and I never give up." The executive in Marcus knew this was impossible, illegal even. But the man who'd once been a scared kid on these same streets saw something extraordinary in Zara Thompson. "How long have you been selling candy?" 3 weeks, sir. I make about $30 a day on good days, 20 on bad ones. But it's not enough. The shelter charges $15 a night for all 3 of us, and we need food money too." She held up her box with trembling hands. "Would you like to buy some candy? The chocolate ones are really good." Marcus bought every piece of candy in her box, $200 worth. But as he handed her the money, he saw something in her eyes that made his heart skip. Gratitude, yes, but also a sharp intelligence that seemed to peer right through him. "Sir," Zara said quietly, pocketing the money carefully, "I know you're just being kind, but I meant what I said about the job. I'll prove to you that I'm worth it." She paused, studying his face with an intensity that was unsettling in someone so young. "You grew up poor too, didn't you? I can tell by the way you look at me." "Like you understand." Marcus was speechless. This 7-year-old had read him better than most adults ever had. "What makes you say that?" "Rich people who were always rich. They look at poor kids like we're broken things they want to fix. But you look at me like you see yourself." Zara's wisdom was startling. "Am I right?" Before Marcus could answer, his assistant Rebecca rushed out of the building. "Mr. Williams, the board meeting starts in 5 minutes. The investors from Tokyo are waiting." She stopped short when she saw Zara. "Rebecca, I want you to meet someone very special. This is Zara Thompson." Marcus placed a gentle hand on the child's shoulder. "Zara, this is Rebecca. She helps me run my company." Rebecca looked confused, but Zara stepped forward with perfect poise. "It's very nice to meet you, ma'am. Mr. Williams was just telling me about his business. I think what you do here, building homes and schools, is really important work. Rebecca blinked in surprise. Most adults didn't understand the company's mission that clearly on first explanation. Thank you, Zara. That's very sweet. Mr. Williams, Zara turned back to Marcus. I know you have to go to your meeting, but I'll be here tomorrow and the next day and every day until you decide to give me a chance. I don't give up easy. She started to walk away, then turned back. And sir, thank you for buying my candy. Tommy and Ben are going to eat real good tonight. As Marcus watched her small figure disappear into the crowd, Rebecca touched his arm. Sir, who was that child? She was remarkable. I'm not sure yet, Marcus replied, but his mind was already racing. But I have a feeling she's going to change everything. That night, as Marcus sat in his penthouse apartment overlooking the city, he couldn't get Zara out of his mind. Her words echoed in his thoughts. You grew up poor too, didn't you? She was right, of course. 20 years ago, he'd been the one standing outside office buildings, begging for scraps, trying to take care of his sick mother after his father abandoned them. He'd clawed his way up from nothing, using his intelligence and determination to build an empire. But somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten what it felt like to be that desperate, that hungry, that alone. Marcus pulled out his phone and called his head of security. David, I need you to do something for me. There's a little girl named Zara Thompson. She's been staying at one of the downtown shelters with her 2 younger brothers. I want you to find out everything you can about her, but be discreet. Don't let her know she's being watched. Of course, sir. Anything specific you're looking for? Marcus stared out at the glittering city lights, each one representing dreams, struggles, and stories. I want to know if her story checks out. And David? I want to know about the accident that killed her parents. Something about this whole situation feels significant. As he hung up the phone, Marcus made a decision that would change not only Zara's life, but his own in ways he couldn't yet imagine. Tomorrow, he would find a way to help this extraordinary little girl. But first, he needed to know exactly who Zara Thompson really was. The next morning arrived gray and cold, with snow threatening in the heavy clouds above Chicago. Marcus had barely slept, his mind consumed with thoughts of the remarkable 7-year-old who'd somehow managed to see straight through his carefully constructed persona. He arrived at the office an hour early, hoping to catch Zara before the building filled with employees. Sure enough, there she was, standing in the exact same spot as yesterday, her cardboard box of candy clutched against her chest. But today she wasn't alone. 2 smaller children huddled close to her, a boy who looked about 5 with wide, scared eyes, and a toddler with curly hair who couldn't be more than 3. Tommy, Ben, remember what I told you? Zara was saying in a gentle but firm voice as Marcus approached. Stay close to me, be polite, and don't touch anything unless I say it's okay. Zara hungry, the littlest one whimpered, tugging at her worn coat. I know, baby. Sister's going to get us breakfast soon, I promise. She kissed the top of his head, then looked up to see Marcus walking toward them. Her face lit up with hope. Mr. Williams, you came back. Good morning, Zara. And who are these handsome young men? Marcus knelt down to their eye level, his heart breaking at how thin they all looked. This is Tommy and this is Ben, Zara said proudly, pulling her brothers closer. Boys, this is Mr. Williams, the man I told you about. He might be able to help us. Tommy stepped forward, his little chest puffed out with 5-year-old bravado. Are you really a millionaire? Zara says you own this whole big building. Marcus couldn't help but smile. I do own this building. What do you think of it? It's really tall, Tommy said solemnly. Taller than the trees in the park where we used to live with Mama and Daddy. The mention of their parents cast a shadow over the little group, but Zara quickly stepped in. Mr. Williams, I brought Tommy and Ben because I want you to see why this job is so important to me. They're good boys, but they need someone to take care of them, and I'm all they have left. Marcus studied the 3 children, noting how Zara naturally positioned herself as their protector, how the boys looked to her for guidance despite her young age. David's preliminary report had come in late last night, confirming the basic facts of Zara's story. Parents killed in a car accident, children placed in foster care ran away together, but there were gaps, inconsistencies that bothered him. Zara, have you and your brothers had breakfast this morning? She hesitated, clearly debating whether to lie. We had some crackers from the shelter. That's not breakfast. Come on, all of you. There's a cafe across the street. Let's get some real food in you before we talk business. Business? Zara's eyes widened. You mean you're really considering giving me a job? I'm considering a lot of things, Marcus replied, taking Ben's tiny hand in his. The toddler looked up at him with complete trust, and Marcus felt something shift in his chest. But first, pancakes. The cafe was warm and bright, a stark contrast to the grey morning outside. Marcus watched in amazement as Zara efficiently cut up Ben's pancakes, made sure Tommy had enough syrup, and ate her own breakfast with precise, careful bites, making each forkful count. You're very good with them, Marcus observed. I have to be. They're scared and confused, and they miss Mama and Daddy something awful. But if I fall apart, they will too. Zara wiped syrup from Ben's chin with practiced ease. That's what being the oldest means. You have to be strong even when you don't feel strong. Marcus set down his coffee cup. Zara, I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about wanting a job. There are laws that prevent children from working, but... He paused, watching her face carefully. What if there was another way I could help? Her expression immediately became guarded. What kind of way? Well, you said you're good at reading and math. What if you could prove that? What if I arranged for you to take some tests, and if you did as well as I think you might, we could discuss some very special opportunities. What kind of opportunities? Zara was clearly intrigued but cautious. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her a photo of a beautiful building with gardens and children playing outside. This is the Williams Academy. It's a special school I founded for gifted children, kids who are exceptionally smart and talented. The students there don't pay tuition. Everything is free, including meals, uniforms, even a place to live if needed. Zara studied the photo intently. It looks like a castle. But why would you want to help us? We're nobody special. You're wrong about that, Marcus said firmly. You are absolutely somebody special. All three of you are. He leaned forward. But here's what I'm really curious about, Zara. Yesterday you read me perfectly. You saw things about me that most adults miss. How did you know I grew up poor? Zara tilted her head, considering. Lots of little things. The way you looked at my shoes, not disgusted, but remembering. How you knelt down to talk to me instead of looking down. Rich people who were always rich don't do that. And your hands, they're soft now, but I can see old calluses. You worked hard with your hands when you were young. Marcus was stunned. This 7-year-old possessed observational skills that rivaled trained investigators. What else do you see when you look at me? You're sad about something old that still hurts. And you're lonely, even though you're surrounded by people all day. Zara's voice was gentle. How you want to help us because helping us helps that hurt place inside you. The accuracy of her assessment left Marcus speechless. Rebecca appeared at their table, slightly out of breath. Mr. Williams, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have a problem. Channel 7 News is here with cameras, asking questions about the mysterious child who's been spotted with you. Apparently someone called in a tip. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. In his world, every move was scrutinized, every relationship analyzed. What kind of questions? They're asking if you're exploiting a homeless child for publicity, if there are inappropriate relationships. Rebecca glanced at the children and lowered her voice. The usual garbage. Zara looked confused. Mr. Williams, what's wrong? Why would someone want to hurt you for being nice to us? Marcus made a decision that would change everything. Because some people can't believe that kindness exists without hidden motives, but I'm not going to let them destroy something good before it has a chance to grow. He stood up, his expression determined. Rebecca, call our PR team. Set up a press conference for this afternoon. Sir, are you sure that's wise? This could backfire. Sometimes you have to take a stand, Marcus said, looking down at Zara's worried face. And sometimes little girls teach you more about courage than all the business schools in the world. As they prepared to leave the cafe, Zara tugged on Marcus's sleeve. Mr. Williams, I don't understand everything that's happening, but I want you to know something. Whatever those people are saying about you, they're wrong. I can tell you're a good man. Marcus knelt down and looked into her wise 7-year-old eyes. How can you be so sure? Because good people see good in others. Bad people only see bad. And you see good in me when nobody else even sees me at all. As they walked back toward the building, Marcus realized that this extraordinary little girl was about to teach him the most important lesson of his life. But first, they had to survive the storm that was coming. The cameras were waiting. And Marcus Williams was about to discover just how far he was willing to go to protect the most remarkable child he'd ever met. The Williams Industries conference room had been transformed into a media battlefield. 6 news crews crowded into the space, cameras pointed at the small podium where Marcus would soon face questions that could either elevate or destroy his reputation. Through the glass wall he could see Zara, sitting with her brothers in his private office. Tommy coloring with expensive pens, while Ben napped on the leather couch. "Sir, I really think you should reconsider this," Rebecca whispered urgently. "Let me handle the press. You don't need to expose yourself like this." Marcus straightened his tie, his jaw set with determination. "No, Rebecca. This isn't about damage control anymore. It's about doing what's right." As he stepped up to the podium, the questions came like machine gun fire. "Mr. Williams, what is your relationship with these children? Are you using them for a publicity stunt? Have the authorities been notified about these homeless minors? What are your real intentions with a 7-year-old girl?" Marcus held up his hand for silence. When he spoke, his voice was calm but carried the authority that had made him a legend in boardrooms across the country. 3 days ago, I met a remarkable young lady named Zara Thompson. She approached me not for charity, not for handouts, but for the opportunity to work, to earn money to take care of her 2 younger brothers after losing both parents in a tragic accident. He paused, scanning the room full of cynical faces. What struck me wasn't just her courage or her determination, though both are extraordinary. What struck me was her intelligence, her maturity, and her absolute devotion to her family. In 15 minutes of conversation, this 7-year-old demonstrated more wisdom and character than most adults I encounter in my business dealings. A reporter from Channel 7 interrupted, "But surely you understand how this looks. A wealthy bachelor taking a special interest in a homeless child. I understand exactly how it looks to people whose minds automatically go to dark places." Marcus cut him off sharply. "But let me be crystal clear about something. My interest in Zara and her brothers is simple. I see extraordinary potential being wasted on the streets, and I have the resources to change that." Through the glass, he could see Zara watching the press conference, her small face pressed against the window. Their eyes met, and she gave him a tiny, encouraging smile that strengthened his resolve. 26 years ago, I was in a very similar situation. My father abandoned our family when I was 8. My mother was sick, unable to work. I spent my childhood taking care of her, skipping school to scavenge for food, lying to social workers to keep us together. Marcus's voice grew stronger with each word. "I know what it feels like to be that desperate, that alone, that determined to survive against impossible odds." The room had grown quiet. Even the most hardened reporters were listening now. "The difference is that I had advantages Zara doesn't have. I had a mother who could teach me when she was well enough. I had access to libraries, to programs designed to help struggling kids. Zara has been surviving on pure instinct and intelligence." Marcus leaned forward. "Yesterday, she read my background better than most psychologists. She demonstrated mathematical skills that impressed my Ivy League-educated staff. She showed leadership qualities that Fortune 500 executives would envy." A reporter from the Tribune raised her hand. "What exactly are you proposing to do for these children?" "I'm proposing to give them what every child deserves: safety, education, and the opportunity to reach their full potential. The Williams Academy has scholarship programs specifically designed for gifted children from disadvantaged backgrounds. All 3 children will be evaluated by our educational specialists, and if they qualify, which I believe they will, they'll receive full scholarships, including housing, meals, medical care, and college preparation. And what do you get out of this arrangement?" The question came from a skeptical voice in the back. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I get to see what America looks like when we actually invest in our most talented children, instead of letting them slip through the cracks. I get to honor the memory of my mother, who died believing I could make something of myself despite our circumstances." His voice grew softer. "And maybe I get to sleep at night, knowing I used my good fortune to create good fortune for others." Just then, the conference room door opened, and Zara walked in. She moved with quiet dignity to the podium, completely unintimidated by the cameras and crowd of adults. "Excuse me," she said politely, "but I think I should speak for myself." The room erupted in surprised murmurs. But Marcus stepped aside, gesturing for her to take the microphone. He had to lower it considerably to accommodate her height. "My name is Zara Thompson, and I'm 7 years old," she began, her clear voice carrying despite her small stature. "Some of you are saying bad things about Mr. Williams because he wants to help my brothers and me. That's not fair and it's not right." She paused, scanning the room with those remarkable eyes. "I asked him for a job because that's what you do when you need money. You work for it. I didn't ask him to adopt us or take us home or anything weird like that. I just wanted the chance to earn money to take care of Tommy and Ben." A reporter called out, "Zara, aren't you afraid of this man? Don't you know it's dangerous for children to trust strangers?" Zara's expression grew serious. "I know lots about dangerous people. We lived on the streets for 4 months before we got into the shelter. I know what bad people look like, how they talk, how they act." She turned to look at Marcus. "Mr. Williams isn't a bad person. Bad people don't buy all your candy and then worry about whether you had breakfast. Bad people don't get sad when they hear about your mama and daddy dying." She turned back to the cameras. "I know some of you grown-ups think kids can't tell the difference between good people and bad people, but you're wrong. We can tell better than you can because we don't have all those complicated thoughts getting in the way. Mr. Williams has kind eyes and sad memories, and he wants to help us because helping us makes his sad memories hurt a little less." The room was dead silent. Even the camera operators seemed transfixed by this 7-year-old's poise and perception. "If you want to protect kids like me, don't try to stop good people from helping us. Try to stop the bad things that put us on the streets in the first place." Zara stepped back from the microphone, then added quietly, "And maybe try to see good things instead of looking for bad things all the time. The world has enough bad things already." As questions continued to fly, Marcus found himself watching Zara with growing amazement. This child was not just intelligent, she was wise beyond her years, with an emotional intelligence that was truly extraordinary. But as the press conference wound down and reporters began filing out, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from David, his head of security. "Sir, we need to talk immediately. What I found about the Thompson family. It's not what you think." Looking at Zara's innocent face as she rejoined her brothers, Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Whatever David had discovered was about to change everything he thought he knew about this remarkable little girl and her tragic story. The real mystery was just beginning, and Marcus had the unsettling feeling that Zara Thompson was far more than she appeared to be. If you're loving this emotional journey, please hit that like button and tell me in the comments, what do you think David discovered about Zara's family? Your engagement keeps these stories coming. Marcus's hands trembled slightly as he closed his office door behind him, leaving Zara and her brothers playing quietly on the carpet. David's cryptic text message had shaken him more than he cared to admit. In 30 minutes, his head of security would arrive with information that could change everything. "Mr. Williams?" Zara looked up from where she was helping Ben stack building blocks. "Are you okay? You look worried." Even now, this extraordinary child was reading his emotions with startling accuracy. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just some business matters to handle." He forced a smile. "How are you three settling in?" "Tommy loves your pens," Zara said, glancing at her middle brother, who was carefully drawing what appeared to be a family portrait. "And Ben hasn't cried once since we got here. He feels safe." She paused, studying Marcus's face. "But something's bothering you about us, isn't it?" Before Marcus could respond, Rebecca knocked and entered. "Mr. Williams, David Mitchell is here to see you. He says it's urgent." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "Send him in." He knelt down to Zara's level. "I need to have a private conversation with one of my employees. Can you take care of your brothers for a few minutes?" Zara nodded solemnly. "We'll be good." "I promise." David Mitchell entered the office carrying a thick manila folder. At 52, he was a former FBI agent with 20 years of investigative experience. His grave expression told Marcus everything he needed to know. This wasn't going to be good news. "David, what did you find?" "Sir, I need to speak with you privately." David's eyes flicked toward the children. Marcus shook his head. "Whatever you have to say, you can say it here. These kids deserve to hear the truth about their own lives." David hesitated, then opened the folder. "Mr. Williams, James and Sarah Thompson died in a car accident on August 15th, just as the children said. But there are complications. What kind of complications? James Thompson wasn't just any construction worker, as the initial report suggested. He was James Thompson III, heir to the Thompson construction fortune, one of the largest privately held construction companies in the Midwest. David pulled out a photograph. This is his driver's license photo. Marcus stared at the image of a man who looked remarkably like himself at that age. Same strong jawline, same determined eyes. You're saying Zara's father was wealthy? More than wealthy. The Thompson family is worth over $200 million. James was the sole heir to the empire, and when he died, David paused dramatically. His children became the primary beneficiaries of the entire estate. The room fell silent, except for the soft sounds of Ben playing with blocks. Zara had gone very still, her intelligent eyes fixed on David's face. But there's more, David continued. James Thompson had been estranged from his family for 8 years, ever since he married Sarah Martinez, a woman his parents considered unsuitable. They cut him off completely, refused to acknowledge their grandchildren, and according to several sources, actively tried to prevent James from accessing his inheritance. Marcus felt pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. So when James died, the children should have inherited everything. But there's a problem. David pulled out legal documents. 3 days after the accident, James's brother, Robert Thompson, filed papers claiming custody of the children and control of their inheritance. When the children disappeared from foster care, Robert hired private investigators to find them. Zara stood up slowly, her small face pale but composed. They weren't looking for us because they loved us. They were looking for us because of the money. David nodded grimly. According to my sources, Robert Thompson has been systematically liquidating assets, claiming it's necessary for family business operations. If he maintains legal control of the children and their inheritance for 7 more years, he gets to keep everything, Marcus finished, because the children would be adults and the money would already be gone. Exactly. David's expression grew darker. And Mr. Williams, there's something else. The car accident that killed James and Sarah Thompson? The police report shows no mechanical failure, no evidence of driver error, and no alcohol in either victim's system. But the brake lines on their car had been recently serviced by Thompson Construction's private garage. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. You're suggesting the accident wasn't an accident? I'm saying there are enough irregularities to warrant a thorough investigation. Irregularities that were apparently overlooked, because Robert Thompson has significant political connections and charitable foundations that keep local law enforcement very well funded. Zara walked over to where Tommy was drawing, her movements careful and controlled. Tommy, what did Uncle Robert say to you the day before Mama and Daddy's accident? When he came to visit, Tommy looked up from his drawing, his 5-year-old face scrunched in concentration. He was angry with Daddy. He said Daddy was being stupid and stubborn, and that family money belonged to family, not to. He paused, looking confused. What's a half-breed? The words hung in the air like poison. Marcus felt rage building in his chest, not just at the racial slur, but at the implications of what Tommy had overheard. Tommy, did Uncle Robert say anything else? Zara's voice was gentle but insistent. He said Daddy better start thinking about what was best for his kids, because accidents happen to people who don't listen to family advice. Tommy returned to his drawing. Unaware of the bombshell he'd just dropped, David closed his folder with a snap. Mr. Williams, I think we have enough to go to the authorities, but I need to warn you, taking on the Thompson family means taking on some very powerful people. Robert Thompson sits on the boards of 3 major hospitals, 2 universities, and has political connections that reach all the way to the governor's office. Marcus looked at Zara, who was staring out the window with an expression far too mature for her 7 years. Zara, did you know any of this about your family? I knew Daddy came from money, she said quietly. I heard him and Mama arguing about it sometimes. Mama said his family were mean people who thought they were better than everybody else because they were rich and white. Daddy said he'd rather be poor with us than rich with them. She turned to face Marcus. I never told you because I was afraid you'd think we were lying about being poor. You weren't lying, sweetheart. Your parents chose love over money, and they paid the ultimate price for that choice. Marcus's voice was firm with resolve. But now we're going to make sure their sacrifice wasn't in vain. He turned to David. I want you to gather everything, every document, every witness statement, every piece of evidence that suggests the Thompsons' deaths weren't accidental. And I want you to find the best criminal attorney in the state. Sir, are you sure you want to get involved in this? Going up against the Thompson family could destroy your reputation. Your business... David, look at these children. Marcus gestured towards Zara, who was now helping Ben stack blocks, while Tommy continued drawing. 3 kids who've been living on the streets for 4 months, because their own family would rather see them dead than acknowledge their right to exist. If we don't fight for them, who will? Zara walked over and took Marcus's hand in her tiny one. Mr. Williams, I need to tell you something important. I know you want to help us, and I'm grateful for everything you've done. But if helping us is going to hurt you, maybe we should just disappear again. We're really good at taking care of ourselves. Marcus knelt down and looked into her wise, sad eyes. Zara Thompson, you are not going to disappear. You are not going to spend one more night worried about where your next meal is coming from, or whether you'll have a roof over your head. And you are definitely not going to let evil people steal what rightfully belongs to you and your brothers. But what if they hurt you like they hurt Mama and Daddy? Tears began to well in Zara's eyes for the first time since Marcus had met her. Then they'll learn what happens when someone threatens my family, Marcus said firmly. The words surprised him as much as they surprised David and Rebecca, but he realized they were absolutely true. Somewhere over the past 3 days, these 3 children had become his family in every way that mattered. As if reading his thoughts, Zara threw her small arms around his neck. Does this mean we get to stay together, all of us? It means, Marcus said, holding her tight, that we're going to fight for the life your parents wanted you to have. And we're going to win. But even as he made the promise, Marcus knew the battle ahead would test everything he believed about justice, power, and the price of doing what's right. The Thompson family had money, connections, and a willingness to kill to protect their interests. All Marcus had was the truth, his resources, and 3 extraordinary children who deserved so much more than the world had given them. It would have to be enough. 2 weeks later, Marcus sat in the office of Eleanor Hayes, the most feared criminal defense attorney in Illinois. The walls were lined with photographs of her with governors, senators, and Supreme Court justices, a visual reminder of the power she wielded in the legal system. Mr. Williams, Eleanor began, her steel-gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. You're asking me to take on one of the most politically connected families in the Midwest based on the testimony of a 5-year-old and some suspicious brake line maintenance records. Do you understand what you're up against? Marcus leaned forward in his chair. I understand that 3 children watched their parents die in what was almost certainly a premeditated murder, and that the people responsible are now trying to steal their inheritance while keeping them homeless and terrified. The Thompson family has contributed over $10 million to various political campaigns in the last decade alone. Robert Thompson personally funded the re-election campaigns of 2 sitting judges, the district attorney, and half the city council. Eleanor's tone was matter-of-fact. They don't just have money, Mr. Williams. They have the entire system working for them. Then we change the system, Marcus replied. Or we work around it. Eleanor studied him for a long moment. What's your real interest in these children? And don't give me some altruistic speech about helping the disadvantaged. Nobody risks their entire empire for 3 kids they met 2 weeks ago, unless there's a personal connection. Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking about Zara's uncanny ability to read people, her fierce protectiveness of her brothers, her wisdom that seemed to come from somewhere beyond her 7 years on Earth. Have you ever met someone who changed your understanding of what's possible? These aren't just 3 homeless kids, Eleanor. Zara Thompson is the most remarkable person I've ever encountered, adult or child. In 2 weeks, she's taught me more about courage, integrity, and unconditional love than I learned in 26 years of life. That's very touching. But she's also potentially sitting on evidence that could expose a conspiracy involving murder, fraud, and the systematic abuse of the legal system for personal gain. Marcus pulled out a folder. David's investigation has uncovered connections between Robert Thompson and at least 6 suspicious deaths over the past 15 years, all people who stood between the Thompson family and significant amounts of money. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. 6 deaths? business partners who refused to sell their shares, a whistleblower who tried to expose safety violations at construction sites, a journalist who was investigating Thompson Construction's ties to organized crime. Marcus opened the folder. All ruled accidents or suicides, all involving people who had recently had confrontations with Robert Thompson. For the first time since the meeting began, Eleanor looked genuinely interested. You're suggesting Robert Thompson is a serial killer. I'm suggesting he's a man who views murder as a business expense. And right now 3 children are the only thing standing between him and complete control of a $200 million empire. Eleanor stood and walked to her window, overlooking the Chicago River. Even if you're right about all of this, proving it in court would be nearly impossible. The children are minors, which limits their testimony. The physical evidence is circumstantial at best, and Robert Thompson has enough legal firepower to bury us in appeals and procedural challenges for decades. What if we could prove he's been systematically stealing from the children's inheritance? Financial fraud is easier to prosecute than murder, and it might give us leverage to force him to reveal what really happened to James and Sarah Thompson. Eleanor turned back to Marcus. That would require access to Thompson Construction's financial records, which would require a court order, which would require evidence of financial impropriety, Marcus finished. What if I told you we already have that evidence? He pulled out a second folder, this one much thicker than the first. Zara Thompson might be 7 years old, but she has an eidetic memory and a mathematical mind that borders on genius. Over the past 2 weeks, she's been recalling conversations she overheard between her parents, conversations about money, about business deals, about financial arrangements that never made sense to her at the time. Eleanor sat back down, clearly intrigued. What kind of conversations? Her father apparently kept detailed financial records at home, records that Zara saw him reviewing regularly. She can recall specific numbers, dates, and transactions, information that suggests Robert Thompson has been embezzling from the family business for years, causing James's absence from company operations to hide his theft. A 7-year-old's memories wouldn't hold up in court, not by themselves. But combined with David's forensic accounting investigation, they provide a roadmap to finding documentary evidence that would hold up in court. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Eleanor, I'm not asking you to take this case based on sentiment or charity. I'm asking you to take it because it represents the biggest financial fraud prosecution in Illinois history, with enough political corruption thrown in to make national headlines. Eleanor was quiet for several minutes, clearly weighing the risks and potential rewards. What about the children's safety? If Robert Thompson has killed 6 people to protect his interests, 3 kids and their guardian wouldn't present much of a challenge. I've hired private security, former Secret Service agents who specialize in protection details. The children are staying at my private estate, which has security systems that rival government facilities. And I've made it clear through various channels that if anything happens to me or the children, enough evidence will be released to bring down not just Robert Thompson, but everyone who's been protecting him. Mutually assured destruction. Eleanor nodded approvingly. I like it, but there's still one problem, time. Even if we can prove financial fraud, civil and criminal proceedings could take years. How long can you maintain this level of security? How long can you keep 3 children hidden from a man with unlimited resources and political connections? Marcus smiled for the first time in the meeting. That's where Zara's brilliance becomes our greatest asset. She doesn't just remember numbers and conversations, she remembers people, places, and connections that adults overlooked at the time. She's provided us with enough information to target Robert Thompson's political allies directly, to expose their own financial improprieties and corruption. He pulled out a third folder. We're not just going after Robert Thompson. We're going after everyone who's helped him, everyone who's taken his money, everyone who's looked the other way while he committed murder and fraud. By the time we're done, the entire network will be exposed. Eleanor opened the third folder and began reading. Her expression grew more amazed with each page. Jesus Christ, Mr. Williams, this isn't just a criminal case, this is a political earthquake waiting to happen. Exactly. And once it starts, Robert Thompson won't be able to stop it. He'll be too busy trying to save himself to worry about 3 children and their inheritance. Eleanor closed the folder and looked directly at Marcus. I'll take the case. But I want you to understand something. This isn't going to be a clean, straightforward legal battle. This is going to be warfare, with casualties on both sides. Are you prepared for that? Marcus thought about Zara's fierce determination, Tommy's innocent trust, Ben's complete dependence on the people who loved him. Eleanor, 3 months ago, these children lost everything they had in the world. They've been living on the streets, hiding from the very people who should have protected them, surviving on nothing but love for each other and an unbreakable will to stay together. He stood to leave. If anyone's prepared for war, it's the Thompson children. They've been fighting for their lives since the day their parents died. Now they finally have someone fighting with them instead of against them. As Marcus left Eleanor's office, he felt a mixture of determination and fear. The battle for the Thompson children was about to begin in earnest, and there would be no turning back. But somewhere in his secure estate, 3 extraordinary children were waiting for him to come home, and that was all the motivation he needed to face whatever came next. The war had begun, and Marcus Williams intended to win it. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the hallway outside courtroom 217, adjusting his tie one final time before the biggest legal battle of his life. Through the courtroom doors, he could see the media circus that had been building for weeks, reporters from every major network, sketch artists poised with their pencils, and enough cameras to film a Hollywood production. Are you ready for this? Eleanor Hayes appeared beside him, carrying 2 large briefcases filled with evidence that would either vindicate 3 orphaned children or destroy the careers of dozens of powerful people. As ready as I'll ever be, Marcus replied, though his stomach was churning with nervousness. How are they holding up? See for yourself. Eleanor nodded toward the witness preparation room. Through the small window, Marcus could see Zara sitting calmly in a chair that was almost too big for her 8-year-old frame. She'd grown taller over the past 6 months, but her eyes still held that same remarkable intelligence and maturity that had captivated him from the first day they met. Tommy, now 6, was coloring quietly at a small table, while 4-year-old Ben played with toy cars on the carpet. David Mitchell approached with his final security briefing. So we have confirmation that Robert Thompson arrived 20 minutes ago with a legal team of 12 attorneys. The media is calling it the trial of the century, orphaned children versus one of the most powerful families in the Midwest. Marcus nodded. Any last-minute threats or complications? 3 more witnesses came forward overnight, former Thompson construction employees willing to testify about financial irregularities and safety violations. Eleanor thinks their testimony could be the final nail in Robert Thompson's coffin. Eleanor emerged from the witness room with Zara by her side. The little girl was wearing a simple blue dress and white shoes, looking every inch the innocent child she was, except for those eyes, which held wisdom far beyond her years. Mr. Marcus, Zara said, using the name she'd adopted for him over the past months. Are you scared? Marcus knelt down to her level. A little bit, sweetheart, are you? No, Zara replied with characteristic honesty. I'm excited. Today is the day we tell everyone the truth about what Uncle Robert did to Mama and Daddy. And when people hear the truth, they'll know we were right all along. Marcus marveled once again at this extraordinary child's unshakable faith in justice and goodness. Over the past 6 months, as they'd prepared for this trial, Zara had never wavered in her belief that truth would triumph over power and money. All rise. The bailiff's voice echoed through the hallway as the courtroom doors opened. The Honorable Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. As they filed into the courtroom, Marcus caught his first glimpse of Robert Thompson in person. At 55, he was still an imposing figure, tall, silver-haired, dressed in an expensive suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, but there was something cold and calculating in his eyes that made Marcus's skin crawl. Robert Thompson's gaze locked onto Zara as she walked past, and for just a moment, Marcus saw something that chilled him to the bone. Not guilt or remorse, but annoyance, as if these 3 children were nothing more than a business problem that had gotten out of hand. Judge Morrison was a stern woman in her 60s, known for her no-nonsense approach to complex cases and her particular intolerance for anyone who tried to manipulate her courtroom. Her reputation for fairness was legendary, which was why Eleanor had fought so hard to get the case assigned to her docket. Ladies and gentlemen, Judge Morrison began, we are here today to determine the facts surrounding the deaths of James and Sarah Thompson, the subsequent custody arrangements for their minor children, and allegations of financial misconduct regarding the Thompson family estate. Eleanor stood for her opening statement. Your Honor, over the next several days we will prove that Robert Thompson murdered his brother and sister-in-law in cold blood, stole millions of dollars from his nieces and nephew, and used his political connections to cover up both crimes. We will show that this case represents not just individual tragedy, but a systematic corruption of our legal and political systems. Robert Thompson's lead attorney, a shark named Mitchell Carver, stood for his response. Your Honor, what we have here is a tragic attempt by opportunists to exploit the deaths of two good people for financial gain. Robert Thompson is a pillar of the community who has spent his entire adult life building businesses, creating jobs, and supporting charitable causes. The allegations against him are based on the confused memories of traumatized children and the conspiracy theories of individuals seeking to profit from this family's tragedy. As the trial began, Marcus watched Zara's face carefully. She listened intently to every word, occasionally whispering brief comments to Eleanor or taking notes in a small notebook she carried everywhere. The prosecution's first witness was Dr. Michael Rodriguez, the forensic accountant who had analyzed the Thompson Construction financial records. His testimony was methodical and devastating. He'd found evidence of systematic embezzlement going back 12 years, with Robert Thompson stealing approximately $18 million from company accounts that belonged to his brother's family. In my 30 years of forensic accounting, Dr. Rodriguez testified, I have never seen such brazen and systematic theft from family members. The defendant created false invoices, phantom employees, and fictitious business expenses to siphon money that legally belonged to James Thompson's children. Mitchell Carver's cross-examination was aggressive, but ultimately ineffective. The numbers were too clear, the paper trail too extensive to dispute. The prosecution's second witness was Detective Maria Santos, who had reopened the investigation into James and Sarah Thompson's car accident. Her testimony sent shockwaves through the courtroom. Upon re-examination of the physical evidence, we discovered that the brake lines on the victim's vehicle had been deliberately severed using a specialized tool. The cuts were clean and precise, consistent with industrial cutting equipment of the type manufactured and used by Thompson Construction. She continued. We also found trace amounts of hydraulic fluid on clothing belonging to the defendant, fluid that matched the specific type used in the victim's vehicle. The courtroom erupted in murmurs, and Judge Morrison had to call for order. But the most powerful moment came when Eleanor called Zara to the witness stand. The 8-year-old walked calmly to the front of the courtroom, raised her right hand, and swore to tell the truth with a solemnity that silenced the entire room. Zara, Eleanor began gently, can you tell us about the last time you saw your Uncle Robert before your parents died? Zara's voice was clear and steady. He came to our house 3 days before the accident. He was very angry with Daddy. He said Daddy was being stupid and selfish, and that he was going to lose everything if he didn't start listening to family advice. Did your uncle say anything else? He said that sometimes bad things happen to people who don't think about what's best for their children. And he said that accidents could happen to anyone, even careful drivers like Daddy. The courtroom was dead silent. Even the reporters had stopped scribbling. Zara, after your parents died, did Uncle Robert try to contact you and your brothers? No, ma'am. The social workers said he was very concerned about us, but he never came to see us. He just wanted the lawyers to handle everything. Zara paused, then added with devastating simplicity, I think he was hoping we would disappear so he could keep Daddy's money. Mitchell Carver's cross-examination of Zara was brief and unsuccessful. Every question he asked, she answered with such straightforward honesty that his attempts to confuse or intimidate her only made him look cruel. The trial continued for 3 more days, with witness after witness corroborating the prosecution's case. Former Thompson Construction employees testified about Robert's violent temper and his resentment toward his brother. Financial experts confirmed the embezzlement charges. Medical examiners presented evidence of the deliberately sabotaged brake lines, but it was the final piece of evidence that sealed Robert Thompson's fate. David Mitchell had discovered a recording device in James Thompson's home office. device that had captured Robert Thompson's final conversation with his brother the night before the accident. As the recording played in the courtroom, Robert Thompson's own voice filled the air. "Jimmy, you're going to regret this decision for the rest of your life. And trust me, that might not be very long if you keep being this stubborn." When the jury returned after only 2 hours of deliberation, Marcus felt his heart pounding. Judge Morrison read the verdict in a clear, strong voice. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree, we find the defendant, Robert Thompson, guilty. On the charge of financial fraud in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. On 18 additional counts of embezzlement and financial misconduct, we find the defendant guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted in chaos. But Marcus only had eyes for Zara, who was crying for the first time since he'd known her, tears of relief, of vindication, of justice finally served. As Robert Thompson was led away in handcuffs, he turned one final time to look at Zara. She met his gaze without flinching and said in a voice that carried throughout the courtroom, "I forgive you, Uncle Robert. Mama always said that hurt people, and I think you must be very hurt inside to do such terrible things." 6 months later, Marcus officially adopted all 3 Thompson children. The adoption hearing was held in the same courtroom where justice had been served. But this time the atmosphere was one of celebration rather than confrontation. "Zara Williams," Judge Morrison said with a smile, "do you understand what it means to be adopted?" "Yes, Your Honor," Zara replied. "It means Marcus is choosing to be our daddy because he loves us, not because he has to be." "And how do you feel about that?" "I feel like Mama and Daddy would be very happy. They always said family isn't about blood. It's about love and choosing to take care of each other." Zara looked at Marcus with shining eyes. "And I think they would like that we found someone who loves us the way they did." Tommy raised his hand like he was in school. "Your Honor, does this mean Ben doesn't have to be scared anymore?" Judge Morrison's smile widened. "Tommy, this means none of you have to be scared anymore. You have a family that will always protect you and love you." As they left the courthouse that day, Zara slipped her hand into Marcus's. "Daddy Marcus," she said, the first time she'd used the word daddy since her biological father's death. "Do you think we can help other kids like us? Kids who are scared and alone?" Marcus squeezed her hand gently. "Zara Williams, I think we can change the world for kids like you used to be." "What did you have in mind?" "I think we should build more schools like the Williams Academy. And maybe we could have special lawyers who help kids when bad grown-ups try to hurt them. And maybe we could have safe houses where kids can stay while they're waiting for their forever families." Marcus looked down at this remarkable little girl, his daughter now, and marveled once again at her capacity for turning her own trauma into a mission to help others. "I think," he said, "that's exactly what we're going to do," and they did. Over the next decade, the Williams Foundation became the largest child advocacy organization in the country, directly responsible for saving thousands of children from dangerous situations and ensuring that justice was served when adults failed in their duty to protect the innocent. Zara Williams grew up to become a lawyer and child advocate, following in the footsteps of Eleanor Hayes. Tommy Williams became a teacher, dedicating his life to helping children discover their own potential. And Ben Williams became a doctor, specializing in pediatric trauma and healing. But they never forgot the day a 7-year-old girl asked a wealthy CEO for a job, and how that simple request led to justice, love, and the transformation of 4 lives forever. The little girl who had once sold candy on the street to survive had indeed changed the world. One child, one family, one act of courage at a time.